Hi, and welcome to the show. We're doing Speakers on Edge, 15 minutes of fame. And today, our voice of vision with a message that matters. His name's David. David, who are you?
Well, the easy way to describe me is I'm the walking, talking definition of resilience. I have encountered a number of challenges over my life, from 2 decades in the British Army, being medically discharged, the mental challenges of getting out and getting used to civilian life, and that whole lifestyle change around that change. Being selected to represent Team UK at the Invictus Games in 2023. And then 3 months before that, getting diagnosed with a life-threatening condition, which was type 1 diabetes as well. And despite guidance suggesting I should consider quitting, I decided to go against it and keep going. But instead of just going to compete, I went there with the deliberate intent to win a gold medal, which, as I've just pointed out, I did. So...
Hang on a second. That's a gold medal.
That is a gold medal, yeah. Invictus Games Gold Medal.
Can I get you to grab it and bring it closer to the camera, please?
Yeah, I can. There we go. It's a little bit worn because I take it around a lot of schools and disabled groups and people that living with impairments and things of that nature as well. And I make a point of letting people have a look at it and try it out. Unfortunately, it's starting to show a little bit of wear, so I've got to get some repairs done.
Okay, so let me just get my head around this for a second. 3 months before, you've been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Now, that's a kind of nasty disease.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it wasn't pleasant. Yeah, so without going into too much detail, I'd been selected in the January of 2023, and training was going well for the most part. I'd signed up to take part in as much as I could to milk the hell out of it because I wanted. It was about my recovery journey. I'd been medically discharged for an array of injuries, PTSD, and I'd really struggled, getting out with all the mental challenges of the change and all that involved. And it was going well, for the first few months. And then come end of April, I started noticing something wasn't quite right. I wasn't feeling myself, particularly on the bike. I was road cycling, you see. And on the first of way, I'd weighed myself because I was trying to lose weight anyway, because the lower weight you are on the bike, the more power the more speed you can get from the power you're applying, if that makes sense. Anyway, on the 1st of May, I was 86.5 kilos. And by the 15th of May, I was just over 70.2, I think I was. That was despite eating 4,000 calories a day, despite increasing my protein intake. I was feeling tired all the time. I was going to the toilet every 90 minutes, like clockwork, throughout the day and night. So I wasn't sleeping at all as well. And even though, as part of my one of my roles in the military, I was a physical training instructor, I'd read about diabetes in my textbooks. I didn't twig. I'd never come across anyone living with it, so I had no experience with it. So I never even considered it. And I went to the doctors because I couldn't figure out why the weight was just rolling off me, even with all the eating and the training. And I even competed like a few days before in a local event. A few days before I was diagnosed, I was still, trying to function, but the doctors finally said to me, if it hadn't come in when I did, a few more days would have been it. That would have been it. Basically, I had something what they called diabetic ketoacidosis. It's basically where my body was eating away at my fat stores and my muscle because it couldn't process the sugars in my blood in the carbohydrates I was eating. If I had not come in when I did, then I might not be sat here now. But that was on the 19th of May that I finally got the diagnosis, and the doctor said to me, he said, "Look, this is really serious. It's some of the highest numbers we've ever seen, and you need to think about dropping out of what you're doing and focusing on recovery. Which is very sensible advice, of course. I don't begrudge him saying that, and my team manager obviously gave me the same advice, and it perfectly sound advice. But I convinced them to let me have the weekends to think about it." Because one of the key details with the Invictus Games is you can only compete twice in your lifetime. So I didn't just want to, throw it away. And so on the Saturday morning, I woke up having had the first full night's sleep I'd had in, at least a week or more, and feeling better. Still crap, excuse my French, but feeling better. And I remember waking up, and I've got my process, my problem solving process, and I've got 5 sort of steps to it. And the first one is to do something simple, and for me, it's to go and get a brew, get a cup of coffee. And the second one is to give it a kiss, and that's to keep it simple. So what I did was I got all the paraphernalia the hospital had given me. I got 2 shopping bags full of stuff when I left the hospital. One with all my medical supplies and my insulin, my various testing equipment and so on, and then all the leaflets and paraphernalia and nutrition advice and so on. And I laid it all out on my kitchen table. And I just went, this is going to be a hell of a challenge. And I kind of had an epiphany moment, and I just realised that if I'm going to, I don't want to just drop out the games, but if I'm going to do it, I need something to keep me focused. And the epiphany was quite simple. It's the significance of the challenge. Sorry, the significance of the goal has to match the scale of the challenge. So it was, that whole go big or go home scenario. So I was like, I can't just go there with the aim of having a go now and trying to get the most out of it. I've got to go there with a deliberate intent to do well. And the target at that point, on the 20th of May, was I'm going for gold or I'm not going at all. It's as simple as that.
I have to ask at this point, here you are sitting at the table the day before you've been given this absolute life-changing diagnosis. Your body is struggling in all levels, basically eating itself alive. You've also been told, if you weren't here today, if a little bit longer, you wouldn't be here. I mean, these are pretty major whacks to the head and to the heart and to the awareness. Now you're sitting at the dining table going, you know what, I'm going to go for gold.
Okay. When you put it like that.
No, we're talking resilience, but how did your mind go from what the, I could die very, very quickly, to I'm going to get a gold medal?
It does sound mental. And when I get into, I suppose, a bit more of the story, it's going to sound even more mental because, I mentioned my sort of problem solving process, and the first one, like I said, is to do something simple. And for me, it's I go and get a brew. Squaddies are infamous for having brews on out and tap all the time. And I'm no exception. And the idea behind doing something simple is it sets you off on that logical path towards a solution, and that's kind of how I start it. And the second bit is to give it a kiss, which is to keep it stupidly simple, which is why I laid everything out on the kitchen table, and just looked at what the next bit was. And the next bit, the third step, is to understand the problem. And it was I kind of got that from I've got a lot of background in fitness and nutrition, and I recognized immediately that this is going to be a huge challenge, and for me to be able to learn to live with it effectively, I either need to really embrace it and go with it, go for it, or it's going to be much more difficult to drip feed it. And so that was kind of the clincher bit. It was like, I'm not messing around here. Let's do this. Let's do it right. Let's get it done quick. I want to get back to a way of life. I've got 2 young kids, a wife to think about. I'm still coming to terms at this point with the change of being out of the military as well. And I've been making progress. Don't forget, in those first few months with the team and so on. So I didn't want to waste it. Is the bottom line. And that's why I was like, well, I'm switching fire from just having a go and just trying to enjoy it to I'm going there with a deliberate purpose of trying to get the top spot. That was because I recognised how big the challenge was going to be. I mean, to put it in perspective, the National Health Service over here in the UK, the NHS, they advise us diabetics what we should do is do 4 blood tests a day, which is a finger prick, and then you get a little device to take a little drip of blood, and it measures the glucose in your blood. And you're supposed to do that 4 times a day, 1 before each meal and 1 before bed. And then from that, you then determine what insulin you need. And there's 5 insulin injections a day. So that's 9 needles every day as a minimum. Well, I recognised within the first week that I couldn't keep up with the rate of change by doing that. So I ended up doubling that number before the end of the first week. And then after 2 weeks, it doubled again. And then it doubled again and so on. The most recorded tests I did in one day was 43. And it built up to that, granted, but that was the level of that was the level of detail I was trying to get to try and keep control of it so I could keep training. Because every time I got it wrong, I had to stop training or and get some food or take some more insulin and just take a break to let my blood sugars come down. Or, it was a constant battle. And then the worst part was at the end of June, and that's where I did those tests I mentioned, the 43. And that was the point where the NHS recognised that they couldn't keep up with the rate of learning that I was doing. And the doctors fast-tracked me in the process of getting what they call a continuous glucose monitor, a CGM, which is basically it's about the size of a large button, and it sticks to the back of your arm or your leg, and it connects to your phone, and it basically gives you live readings of your blood glucose. And the difference there is it tests automatically every 5 minutes. And that was game-changing for me, because where before I'd been reacting to the numbers as I got them, now this allowed me to proactively manage it. And it just flipped a switch in 24 hours. And I was able to train much more effectively. And fast forward in a couple of weeks to, I think it was the 23rd or the 24th of July in 2023, my local council had, in exchange for letting me use the local council gyms for training, I did a PR video for them, and they asked me various questions as part of this in a little interview. And the last question they asked me was the one where I really laid the gauntlet down, for first time publicly, where they said to me, what are your aspirations for the games? What do you want to achieve? And without waiting a beat, I literally responded. I went, "That's easy. I'm going there to win." And that was it. The funny part is the guy in the background had to say, trying to prompt me to add more to it, because I had nothing else to say. That was it. That was my intent, and that was what I was going to do. And yeah, come the 15th of September, you've already seen it. So, and the funny story behind, don't get me wrong, there was more challenges along the way. It wasn't quite as simple as me saying, "Yeah, I'm going to do it," and that was that. I still had to learn to eat right and keep that sustained blood glucose levels whilst training, and the different kinds of training as well. Because if you do really intense sessions, it can spike your blood glucose. But then if you do steady, easier sessions, it can lower it. So it was figuring out what was causing the differences and how to change my nutritional intake to match it, if that makes sense. And then navigating around. Don't forget, I've still got all these other old injuries as well, because my original purpose for being at the games was my recovery journey. That got completely sidelined by obviously the diabetes. So, but on a slightly funny note to finish on, that story, the poster behind me, which says "I am the master of my fate." I actually, excuse me for saying this, but I actually stole it from the arena on the last day of the games, because I'd walked past it a few times, but after winning the gold on the 15th, on the 16th, the last day of the games, I'd been walking around this arena for all this time, like all the athletes have been doing. And on the 16th, on that day, I saw that poster and just stood out to me like a mile, and I just went, I did that. I am the master of my fate, and I proved it. I've done all this, and I took control of that. I didn't let the chaos ensue, as it were. I took it all. So I basically walked up to this poster and noticed there was a security guard 10 feet to my right, and I just said, "Here, mate, apologies now, but I'm having this." And he just like, "Okay, just don't take the frame." And then there you go. So I took it home, paid a guy to put the frame around it as well. And yeah, so
this is a powerful story of resilience, as you said. My question for you before we finish up, what's next?
Well,
what's your next gold medal accomplishment going to be?
Well, I didn't stop there. I set my target after that was to try and keep competing and go for something bigger. So I set my eyes on trying to get into the Paralympics, or get into the Paralympic squad, I should say. So that was September. In the following year, I started looking into who I needed to speak to carry on competing. And it took a period of time because of where I'm located in northeast Scotland. I'm not near the main cycling centres and so on. So I finally made the contact, but it was late in the season. So I ended up entering the last race of what's called the National Para and Disability Cycling League. I think I can't remember the full name. And I ended up winning that race. There was a criterium race and a time trial, and I actually won them both. Although I'd only gone down there to make the contacts, I ended up getting a couple of medals. And then the following year, I got into January. So January this year, I got invited down to the cycle centre in Manchester. And I did my classification interviews. The problem was I didn't quite score enough points to be classified, because obviously we need to do this in order for it all to be fair. So they look at individual injuries, but they don't look at the whole picture. And I'm just a walking bag of disaster. So, but not one of them is enough to score me enough points. So that kiboshed that idea, but instead I had that short-term goal of going, right, well, I did the last race in the league last year, so I'm going to do all the races in the league this year. And there are 10 events in total over 5 weekends. And so I did them all. They were up and down the UK. It was a lot of travel and a lot of logistics. But long story short is that I ended up scoring enough points to actually win the whole league. So in my category, so you can't quite see it. The little medal there was the one I actually got last month. And I've got a whole host of other bits of ribbon down here on the floor behind me that I haven't figured out where I'm going to put yet. So that's just this year. So I'm still trying to figure out what to do next year now. I don't know.
If there's one, I'm loving the story because you truly are a master of your fate, and you're not letting what would be perceived as huge disabilities to stop you from being the master of your fate. So if there was one sentence you could say to our audience today, what should they need to hear from you that is truly a message that matters?
So I don't believe in a perfect plan, because a perfect plan requires being focused on one thing and not on the whole picture. So, however, a reasonable plan will help you weather the chaos. It is a line I use with my wife numerous times in a week, in a month, because stuff just goes wrong. So there is...
Weather the chaos.
Mm-hmm.
David, where can people find you?
So I have a website. It is www.speakingsbc.com. And I've got various social media channels, but you can find it all through the website.
Fantastic. We will also have your photo on our 15 Minutes of Fame guests page on the speakersonedge.com website. David, you truly are a master of your fate, sharing a message that mattered. Thank you for being today's Voice of Vision. We'll see everybody on the next show. Bye.